came from Western Massachusetts.
Okay.
And there's a lot of folks that seem to come from like the Boston area here, and that the area of the East Coast. And then I came out here in 1979, and I started working in the Saturday morning cartoon houses. It was called Filmation, and I drew Fat Albert, Heckle and Jekyll, and Flash Gordon. That's how I learned to become an animator. And then I kept applying at Disney because I heard they admire perseverance. So on the fourth time, they said, we admire your persistence. You're coming into our training program. So I did, and that was the start of a 24-year love affair and experience with that company. And here now.
Wow.
Yeah, living the life. And I think, that's one of the things that people do now is that we sort of compartmentalize our story so that we can sort of pick the highlights of because our lives are long before we come to the village, so it's really kind of challenging. But I worked at Disney for 24 years, and after I left there, I went back to school. I was an adult learner. I went to college as an adult, and then after I got I completed my master's degree and my doctorate, and I went to work in the public sector, which is very different from working in the private sector, such as Disney. So I was the head of training for the city of Pasadena, and I retired from as the head of training for the Metrolink organization, which is our regional railroad. And that was it.
Wow.
My whole life. 25 words or less.
So you were telling me an interesting story about Roy Disney in Russia.
Well, if you have to say what was one of the, most sensational experiences in your work life, Disney had a lot of them, but one time it was around 1990, and it was the period when the Soviet Union, just before the Soviet Union fell, and it was called Perestroika and Glasnost, which was a cultural exchange. Well, Madame Gorbachev called the Disney Corporation, and she wanted Roy Disney and his wife Patty and there were 14 of us, and we went over to the Soviet Union. We brought 4 animated films with us because they wanted to share those with as many people as they could get into the theaters because they'd never seen these movies. And the Moscow airport was shut down when we arrived there, and we rode through the middle of Moscow in a motorcade. And I mean, it was absolutely remarkable. It was really remarkable. It was an unusual event, to say the least.
That sounds pretty cool.
It was very cool, very cool.
So I know you're involved in a lot of activities here. You're hosting Discovering Laguna Woods Village. Did you have TV experience before? Is that your first TV show you've done?
Well, no, I not camera work.
As a host?
I've done a lot of presenting. I presented all over the world. Disney sent me to Singapore and Hong Kong and London and Paris and Moscow, but other places where we were actually recruiting for regional offices there. So I would go into schools primarily and recruit young artists to work in the regional offices so that they could produce product. I mean, Disney was going through a period of rapid growth, and so they needed to staff up these offices, so they sent me all over the world, and it was amazing, absolutely amazing. So I presented a lot, but I wasn't on camera. That's new.
So you're a natural.
No, I don't know about that. I practiced talking to my refrigerator. That's my secret.
So your jewelry work is very, very interesting.
Clubhouse 4 is the most remarkable thing, and I mentioned it in one of my shows as I was talking to Yvonne Lowe. I said, when I walked past the display windows in Clubhouse 4, that was the thing that said, you need to move here because there are people here who make this amazing work, and maybe you can meet them and maybe they can share their skills with you, and they do. They're so generous with their time. So we have great artists that live here and train others and the Emeritus program. So I mean, it's just like it's like a whole new life. It's like a sandbox for grown-ups. It really is. So I love that aspect of it. You're always on a learning curve.
What other clubs or groups are you working with, hanging out with?
Well, I do yoga, and that's become a new passion of mine, and I feel it actually changing me over time. If you do it regularly, it's a really nice benefit of having the time to learn yoga and to practice yoga. the television show takes up some time, but that's great because I'm always meeting new people. I'm always finding people that have interesting lives and stories, and they're just so wonderful to meet. And we're so lucky that we can just walk wherever we're going, stop, say hello, and find out something about someone who might have come from across town or across the world.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Everybody has a bucket list, right? Cyndee, tell us some about your bucket list.
Well, I already checked off 2 things since I've lived here in 3 years. I learned to swim, and also I learned to ride a horse. So I went over to the stables and, did that for a while.
You never rode a horse before you lived here?
No, no, and I wanted to. And there were horses all around me when I was growing up, and I was always afraid of them. It's similar to the fear I had of water, so a fear of horses. So I'm knocking off all my phobias. But that was terrific. And once I got that out of my system, then I said, okay, I can move on to something else now. But yeah, a few more things to check off.
So now you're a regular horse rider?
No, I just got it out of my system. Yeah,
Okay.
I went a few times and I accomplished that, and then I think the beginning of the fear started to come back. So I said, okay, let's move on to something else. Maybe go back to that. But it's just nice to have it. Who has an equestrian center? It's amazing. Nobody.
You look like you could surf. You thought about trying to surf?
Well, okay. I moved up from learning how to float and swim to paddle. I have paddleboarded.
Okay.
I have paddleboarded. But you know what I really spend a lot of time doing?
The nap.
Yeah, that's on my bucket list. To be able to, in the middle of the afternoon, sit down and just close your eyes. I never could do that when I was working. It wouldn't do. So now I can.
They call that the guilt-free nap.
It's a guilt-free nap for sure. Yep, just waste a half an hour and get up and do something else. So, yeah, why not?
Awesome. Well, thanks, Cyndee. It's been really fun. I'm glad we had this chance to sit down and talk.
Thanks for coming over, Mark. It was fun.